Chapter 11. Why Jack Give Me That Rock? August 2002. The next day was Saturday. I went home. I needed to. When I pulled into the driveway, my job was jammed inside me like a kidney stone. It dissipated quickly. I was greeted at the door by a postcard. My wife, my children, a dog. Smiles and waves and hugs. The weekend passed in a blissful flash. The kids laughed around the pool. Gwen pointed me to the yard work. I love yard work. Everything is self-evident and rewarding. The lawn needed a trim. I trimmed it. There were flowers on the verge of the backyard that needed pruning. I pruned them. I put some of the clippings in a Southwest-style vase, red desert pottery painted royal blue with yellow sun disc. I put them in the middle of our heavy oaken table. I played flashlight tag with Jack and Dale on the golf course. We went to the movies. We played chicken in the pool. That weekend, the heavyweight burdens of the job succumbed to the featherweight joys of home life. Gwen's birthday was coming up, and we knew I wasn't going to make it. I had to go to San Diego for an ATF training session. So one night, all the grandparents came over for dinner. Gwen broiled shrimp, and I grilled T-bones. We talked about Jack starting slow-pitch baseball that fall. No more T-ball. My dad said I'd teach him all about getting it going under pressure. I said, hell yeah, I would. We talked about what I do in San Diego, and I said aside from listening to lectures and hanging out with my partners, I was going to surf. At night, in bed, I'd run through the case in my head. We'd made good progress, but I was still insecure. The fear I'd felt as we rolled up to Mesa was subsiding and beginning to congeal into confidence, but I still wanted to take it pretty slow. We'd go full bore later, once we knew that we had a reasonable chance of getting away with riskier questions and activities. If you didn't wait until you have enough credibility, then cases can go bad fast. My most recent bad experience was on a Sons of Silence case. The Sons were a minor biker gang in Colorado Springs. We were running around as a made-up club called Unforgiven. All the members were cops. Our center patch was St. Michael, and we wanted to further demonstrate that the Sons use intimidation and the threat of violence to maintain their turf. If we could do this, we could roll it into the RICO case being built against them. We wanted to do it that night by putting the screws into them, by hanging out in their place and showing them up. They were small time and my confidence was high. My partners John Babyface Carr and Chris Bayless accompanied me to the bar. We sat in their place and drank and waited. We didn't have to wait long. A guy asked me who I was and I told him I was the Unforgiven. Who the fuck are you? He said he was the warlord of the Sons of Silence. I lied and told him I'd never heard of them. He knew I was full of shit. He said we needed to take off our cuts, sit tight, and wait for the ass beating that was on its way from his brothers. I told him, fuck you. We stay or leave when I feel like it, not when ordered. That was stupid. The place was suddenly pin drop quiet. The only sound was the deadbolts turning on the front door. Most of the time, after taking a beating, a man will bullshit about how big the other guy was, how he didn't have a chance in hell. I'm no small fry, but this guy was legitimately huge. According to the marshal's processing, he was 6'6" and a shade under 300 pounds. He reeled back and hit me with the no shit for real knockout punch. My head whipped like a ragdoll's. Babyface later told me that as the guy had hit me, he watched my eyes roll back into the back of my head. I fell, and the only thing that kept me on my feet was a column in the middle of the bar. Not 5 seconds later, Babyface was chicken winged while Chrisser and I fought for our lives as the whole bar wailed on us. Guys, chicks, everyone. Pool cues, shot glasses, steel-toed boots, flashlights. We had a couple guys locked outside who eventually came in and helped put a stop to it. But we took a licking. We'd made such an impression that when the Suns president learned of the fight, he said, I don't know who those dudes are, but they should be in our club. The only price I had paid for that kind of respect was pissing grape juice for about a week. That's why I love yard work, and I had plenty of it that August weekend. But the weekend had to end, and as I loaded the Merc, Jack ran up to me. He looked up and held out his hand, giving me a small, smooth rock from the backyard. He placed it in my palm and folded my fingers over it. He held my fist in his hands. It was a mature gesture for an 8-year-old. I wondered what exactly the rock was for as I smiled at Jack, but I didn't ask. I pocketed it and kissed his hair and left. The trip to San Diego was a week away, and before we left, I had to see Smitty. Throughout the Riverside case, I'd run with Sugar Bear. I'd maintained that I was not a one percenter. As far as Smitty knew, I was a freelance roughneck. I was afraid he'd be suspicious when I revised my line and told him I'd been a solo Angels nomad all along. I knew Bad Bob had called Smitty and told him that the Solos were a new club with permission to fly their colors in Arizona. When Smitty told Bad Bob he knew who I was and that I was no one percenter as far as he knew, Bad Bob assured him I was on the level. He agreed with Smitty that I should have told the truth from the beginning, but he vouched for me in the same breath, saying that my dishonesty would be compensated for my loyalty. Smitty told him fine, but he still wanted to talk to me. On August 9th, Carlos, Timmy, Pops, and I met Smitty and his wife, Lydia, and Dennis at the Inferno in Bullhead. We were led upstairs to a private room that had been set up with empty glasses and a few bottles of Crown Royal. I apologized quickly and I said I'd lied out of necessity and respect. I said I held out so long because the last thing I wanted to do was challenge the Hells Angels. I'm sorry I wasn't honest, but hindsight being 2020, I think it was the best for everyone. Smitty mulled this over. Lydia and Dennis sat off to the side whispering to each other. After a minute or so, Sonny cracked the seal of a bottle of Crown and poured out a half dozen shots. When he was finished, he looked at each of us with hard eyes. He lifted his glass and indicated we should do the same. We did. We took a sip. As he removed the glass from his lips, he cracked that mile-long grin of his. Even his beard got happy. Smitty put a hand on my shoulder. He wagged his finger at all of us like we'd been bad boys. Then he said, "You did all right, Bird. Not right, mind you, but all right. From now on, you be on the up and up with the 8 ones, and all is forgiven." 8 ones was another of their nicknames, referring to the 8th and first letters of the alphabet, H-A. I choked back my crown and said, "No sweat, Smitty." Smitty then launched into his welcome to Bullhead speech. He said, "Do your thing." He said, "I have guns if you want them." I said, "I got guys all over the state with guns for you." He said, "I got chicks with guns." To that, Carlos cupped his hands and jiggled them in front of his chest and said, "I hope so." Smitty laughed, his grin never breaking stride, and said, "Not just those kind, but the kind that go pop too." Carlos said that he'd once had a pair of titties go pop on him. Said it was pretty. We all laughed. Lydia laughed the hardest. Then, unprompted, Smitty offered up that he had fled to California for Arizona after he committed an arson. He said he torched a bar, an adjacent business, and a motorcycle garage. It was just too hot, you know. No one pointed out the bad pun. He went on, "Hey man, Arizona's good stuff. Good stuff. Sonny's here, Johnny and Hoover, and Bad Bob too. Teddy's here, Crow's here. Lots of old school headbangers. We got this state locked down. Arizona is red and white through and through. Bad Bob did right. We're thin up here and we're happy to have you. You guys are good fucking stuff. Now let's go eat dinner." As we left the bar, Smitty flashed the butt of a gun at me with a wink and handed it to Dennis, a convicted felon. Dennis took it and stuffed it in his pants. We consummated our friendship with burgers, beer, and milkshakes at the Mad Dog Tavern. Everything was delicious. Things were going well, which meant we were due to hit our first speed bump.